which consists of the training event series as well as the competition and the conference from the Impactional Changemaker conference. So now I think before we go on with the main agenda, I would first like to introduce our moderator for today's event. Here we have Kakaris from the Department of International Relations at the Faculty of Social Political Science from Gadjah Mada University. Let's welcome Kakaris first as our moderator for today. Good morning, Kakaris.
Hello, good morning everyone.
Okay, it's a pleasure to meet you, Kakaris, and we really look forward to learn something from the event today. And I think everyone here can't wait to witness what the discussion is all about today. So I think I will give the floor to Kakaris as the moderator for today's event. Enjoy.
Excited to also introduce to you the two most prominent names in the humanitarian scene in Indonesia, Pak Sigit and Mbak Lisa. So for the viewers out there who does not know what Bapak and Mbak is, it is a term of endearment such as like sir and madam. And before going on even further, let me recap that the topic for today's event is challenges and pathways to finding solutions in the global refugee landscape. And before going any further, as I have already mentioned before, Professor Dr. Sigit Trianto here is a Dean Emeritus of Faculty of Law, Universitas Gadjah Mada. His primary research interests are in international law, law and conflict resolution, law and globalization, international humanitarian law, refugee law, legal education, and legal theory. While the second speaker here, Mbak Dr. Realisa Darasia Masardi is a lecturer in Department of Anthropology, Faculty of Cultural Sciences, Universitas Gadjah Mada. Her dissertation is titled Independent Refugee Youth in Waiting, published by Amsterdam Institute for Social Science Research in 2021, and she has also recently become a postdoctoral awardee of AAS Gosling Lim Fellowship in Southeast Asian Studies 2022 in University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, United States of America. So before going into the talk show even further after this, I would like to welcome Professor Sigit to present his presentation on refugee as a global problem. Is burden sharing possible? So Professor Sigit, time and place is yours.
Okay, thank you, Mada. Good morning, everyone. And today I am delighted and also has a great honor being invited for the very important program organized by Impactional today, in which during the course of our discussion this morning, it seems that we would like to share our concern concerning what's really going on in front of us, not only in Indonesia, but actually the humanitarian problem, the humanitarian crisis is going around the world. And also nowadays we have to deal with so many crises, which eventually this crisis also giving a very serious and important impact to the humanitarian problem and to all aspects of our life. Okay. Since the time allowed for me to share with you concerning the refugee problem, what I would like to share with you is based on my experience, because 25 years ago I was working for some international humanitarian agency like UNHCR, ICRC, and WHO. And most of our work 25 years ago is dealing with refugee and displaced persons. Which is actually, it is not really new issue for us, but this issue is actually starting from the end of the Second World War, last century. But until nowadays, this issue is still relevant and still actual because we have to witness this problem is around the world until nowadays. So, uh, in this very short discussion, I would like to highlight about a refugee as a global problem, and I would like to also provoke to all of us whether this problem opening the opportunity and challenge to all of us around the world to share the burden concerning the refugee. So next slide. Sorry. Okay. May I stand again? Okay. Thank you very much. So there would be four issues I would like to highlight. First of all, concerning the context in which refugee problem is in relation with the population movement, and also what catalyst of population movement and also and then the second issue is what is refugee and why and how refugee around the world, and then of course we should uh, analyze and also see the refugee problem from the global perspective. There is an opportunity for international community to all of us to refer what has been provided by the world in the form of legal instrument and including ethical standards as a framework for us how to the refugee crisis or refugee problem or displaced problem, creating dilemma and also challenge to all of us. Next. Yes. Okay, so how we understand refugee I would like to highlight a contemporary text that I could refer or quoted from the recent research uh, published by Origin Refugee Center, in which nowadays around 89 million people displaced in 2021. And over 40% were refugees who had fled to another country, meaning they are crossing the international border and has to depart from his or their country of origin and go to another country. And in 2022, the total number of displaced persons around the world is even higher, because now becoming 100 million. So what the population movement, the displaced caused by? So post-population movement can take place because of natural disaster, but also what is being called man-made disaster. The disaster is not only caused by the nature, but also caused by the action of the human being. We call it as man-made or human-made disaster. However, people or person forced to flee because of natural disaster, usually they are taken care by the national authorities. because it is the obligation or the mandate of the national authority based on the constitution that we should care on the population due to natural disaster. On the other hand, if we look into the people who are displaced due to victim of human-made disaster, usually do not have the possibility of state care and protection because uh, people who are being persecuted and displaced has to move to another country for seeking safety and dignity. Usually or generally, they are even the target of the specific group of national authority. So, in short, usually they don't have the opportunity to be protected by the national authority. So, okay, thank you. Let's see the traditional uh, refugee problem. In the past, especially in the 20th century, people are displaced and then have to depart from the country of origin and to move to another country by crossing the international border, usually do ethno-nationalist conflict, identity struggle and repression. We could see around the world what happened concerning the refugee asylum seek likewise what happened. However, in the 21st century, the situation relatively different because there is also democratic, environmental, and also getting worse because exploited by smugglers. And also, this problem also connected with what has been called transnational organized crime, like maritime security, people smuggler, terrorism, etc. And it's going around the world. And now it is the catalyst of the refugee, asylum seeker, or displaced person internationally, which quote unquote even more complicated if we compare with the past century. And now becoming the issue around the world. So war, conflict, climate change, persecution, economic opportunity, and also violence, poverty, and etc. All of these variable or all of the factors contribute to the displace of the person around. And okay, now we focus on what has been called refugee. Who and why refugees? Refugees are people who have fled war, violence, conflict, or persecution and have crossed an international border. So when we are discussing or pointing out about the refugee, there are two elements. One is persecution, a target of persecution, and second one is crossing the international border. They have to depart from their country of origin and seeking safety in another country. Whereas for the person who are settled in their country of origin, normally or usually they are called internally displaced person, and they are under the responsibility of the national authority on the local government. However, for the refugee who are seeking for safety and better life, with crossing the international border, they have even worse situation. They have language barrier, housing problem, access to medical services, cultural difference, rising children, prejudice, racism, or even xenophobia. And this is creating the situation of refugees who are crossing the international border even more difficult and complicated. Okay. So when we are discussing refugee, who are crossing the international border, actually, during the end of the Second World War, there is already concern among the people around the world, in which the people who are crossing the international border seeking safety and dignity in another country, their lack of protection of the country of origin due to serious human rights violation, and it is the cause why they have to flee their country of origin and seeking sanctuary in another country. So another situation that we should pay attention for the review, even they crossing the international border, fleeing from the country of origin, escaping from the threat which they have to deal with in this country of origin, and they are stay in the country of asylum or host country, they have still problem for them because they are foreigner, having no access to protection and also other services in the host country. And it is creating the situation of refugee or displaced person even more very complicated. In such a context, then the international community after the Second World War in 1951 eventually agreed to provide legal instrument, what has been called Geneva Convention of 1951 concerning the status of refugees. However, the Geneva Convention of 1951 only deal with the refugee due to Second World War, which mostly only in Europe and mostly European. In the later development, the international community aware that actually refugees not only in Europe, but also around outside Europe, in Asia, in Africa, in the continent. So in 1967, there is a protocol amending the 1951 convention, removing the time and territorial limitation concerning the refugee, so that refugee could happen and the refugee law accepted by international community in the form of Geneva Convention and Protocol New York 1967 apply not only for the refugee in Europe, but to the refugee around the world. That the existing universal legal instrument dealing with the refugee around the world. Okay, why international community should provide protection? Normatively, it will look into any constitution or legal system around the world. State or national authority has the mandate or authority for exclusive jurisdiction over territorial and also people. And state has the right and responsibility to protect the people. However, as I have mentioned, that refugee or asylum seeker, they have crossed the international border, leaving their country of origin, go to another country. In such a context, then the national protection is absent. Since the national protection is absent, the international community provides surrogate protection. What has been called international protection in the form of refugee status or asylum. Why international community providing surrogate protection? Because the national authority call it unwilling or unable to protect the people on the national who are crossing the international border and leaving their country of origin for safety and dignity or seeking safe haven outside his country of origin. Okay. That's why the international community provides international protection system as a temporary protection before durable solution could be found out. Because when people in status of refugees, there would be three possibility of durable solution. First of all, voluntary repatriation. If it is possible, they could go back to their country of origin. If not possible, then there would be possibility for local integration, in which in the host country, if the legal system regulation available, they could be citizen or national in the host country. If, for example, if you seeking asylum in Australia or in Europe or in US or in Canada, after a process of adjudication, you are recognized as refugee, then you have the possibility to be the citizen or the national of the host country. But not all countries providing this legal system for local integration. Likewise in Indonesia, for example. Even how many years you are in Indonesian territory, there would be no possibility to be Indonesian citizen. Because the legal system in Indonesia do not provide local integration regulation. So if the first and second option is not possible, then the third option is the resettlement, in which they could be sent or accepted by third country to be resettled there. So for example, refugee in Indonesia eventually would be resettled in third country, either in Europe, in Asia, or in Australia, with providing the legislation. Okay, next. Okay. So based on the concern of the international community today, then we find out that normatively that we have Refugee Convention or Geneva Convention of 1951 and Protocol New York 1967, and for the general system with protecting the refugee or displaced person, there are so many general international human rights instruments. Universal Declaration of Human Rights, ICCPR, uh, Convention for the Rights of Children, Convention Against Torture, and also Convention for the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, Racial Discrimination, and Convention for Migrant Workers, and so many regional instruments, but also national protection. In many or in some countries, there is national legislation concerning the protection of refugees. In the West and North Europe country, usually they have an established national legal system dealing with the refugee and asylum seeker. But in another country like West in Asia, mostly national legal system is absent. So that's why I have mentioned previously that there would be no possibility for local integration for the asylum seeker or refugee in Asia country. So eventually they have to be resettled in another country which provide national legal system or national protection. So when we have such a legal instrument as normative standard or reference for the protection of refugees, so we could conclude that it is founded in international treaty but also in customary. And also there is general principle and in so many legal instruments, and also strengthened in the so many court decision and also national jurisdiction. And there is also soft law, humanitarian principle, and also ethical standard around the world, basically. Because humanitarian issue, protecting other people who are in need of protection is teaching of all of religion and ethical standards. So that the international community assigned one what is been called institution UNHCR or United Nations High Commissioner for Refugee to deal with the protection assistance for refugee around the world. In which the UNHCR would present in the country in which there is no national legal system or there is no institution available for protecting refugees around the world. Okay, right? Okay. So how we could uh, see the refugee problem and protection needs from the point of view of the state obligation and state interest. If we look into the legal system in international community, actually there is a principle, what has been called principle of non-refoulement, originated from the French language, in which uh, all countries should allow asylum seeker, refugee enter their border on the sake of seeking a protection. So this non-refoulement principle is part of the international customary law, in which, including Indonesia, has been practicing for many years non-refoulement. In 1970, we have Indochina's refugees. Hundreds of thousands people fleeing from Vietnam, from Indochina, and crossing the sea of Southeast Asia and stranded in many areas of Indonesia, and Indonesia providing refugee processing center in the Galang Island, with the assistance of the international community, of course, with the comprehensive plan of action. So it is practicing by all countries around the world the principle of non-refoulement. So should provide the access to territorial and treating a foreigner who are enter their territory with international human rights standards and their basic human rights should be respected. In many countries who has the national legislation for refugee and asylum seeker could be treated quote unquote as same as national or local citizen with the right to work, right to education, and also cultural and social rights. But in another country, maybe the situation is even more complicated or even more difficult. Okay, right? So, but nowadays, even though the refugee problem starting from even 70 or 100 years ago, around the world, but in many countries we have still have problem which could be a challenge or dilemma when we are discussing about the refugee problem around the world. First of all, there is lack of basic conceptual understanding, even in the policy and decision making. I have experienced many times invited by the parliament, by the ministerial, for discussing and proposing how to deal with the refugees. Most of them could not make a distinction between refugee, asylum seeker, internally displaced person, illegal migrant, and illegal foreigner. There is lack of conceptual and basic understanding. And then the second one is the lack of political willing. Many countries, if we could making deep research, the lack of political willingness is still available. And then this factor also created by the quote unquote national security consideration, in which fear of factor being economic impact, sectarian ideology, transnational organized crime, terrorism network, and etc. And of course, there is low priority in view of the domestic problem like internally displaced person, unemployment, poverty, and etc. Okay. So in such a context, then we have no basic policy concerning the refugee asylum seeker in most countries. Absent of the competent institution. Likewise, if I could mention in Indonesia, if there is asylum seeker or refugee coming to Indonesian territory, there is no institution having the authority, having the competence. Not Human Rights Commission, not the police, not the immigration, not the local government, and no institution. Isn't it? This will be very difficult if there is no competent institution to deal with the real problem in the place. Okay? And then no standard mechanism. No standard mechanism, no legislation, and no competent institution you could imagine if you are in a such a position to which or to who you would like to seek assistance. Okay? And then, consequently, there is no status or a blaring status in a limbo situation. And the situation is actually happen not only in Indonesia, in most ASEAN countries or around the world, the situation is same as what I could mention here. So that's why in the beginning I'm raising the question whether the burden sharing is possible. If we are human beings, we have the humanitarian values, and we have a concern about another human being, then it should be ethical standard. Legal instrument is available. Religious teaching provided. But the big problem for us is whether there is willingness, including the political willingness for the policy and decision maker to share the burden concerning the humanitarian problem which happen around the world from time to time due to many reasons, due to many complicated situations. So it is the challenge to all of us, and all of us have the opportunity to provide idea, to contribute with agenda, with program, with promotional activity, with any other program in relation with how we deal with this issue for the sake of burden sharing around the world. Okay, thank you very much. I should stop at this point and back to the moderator. Thank you.
All right, please give a round of applause to Professor Sigit. And up next will be Mbak Lisa with her also interesting presentation. Mbak Lisa, time and place is yours.
Okay. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank, thank you so much for having me. I think this is a great opportunity to share probably my experience working in the refugee issues, particularly in Indonesia for probably the last 10 years. I would like to congratulate the organizer for this event. I think it's really a great event to give chance to young scholars and young activists. I hope to learn a lot of things that going on in the world today. And now I'm asked to speak about the discussion today. I believe that it will be three lectures. First is in Indonesia, and then the second one is in Turkey, and then the third one will be in Hungary. Yeah, I think so. This is like introductory things, and we have learned a lot from Prof. Sigit. I also learned a lot as well. Today, I would like to also share probably some of the discussion because my background is anthropology. A discussion about the terms of the refugees and also how actually the grayness area in terms of legal protections for refugees in Indonesia is implemented. So how it can be a challenge, but sometimes it also can be an opportunity for the populations as well, and also for the locals to show their creativity and to try to navigate their way around. Okay, so when we talk about the global refugee crisis, I think probably In this past years, you have heard a lot of these terms, yeah, with after the Arab Springs and the Syria. Before that, the civil war in Afghanistan, where it becomes the main country of origin to send refugees go out from the country from Afghanistan, meaning go to Pakistan or Iran, and also nowadays we have a lot of refugee populations of Afghan refugees, particularly Hazara ethnic groups in Indonesia as well. So they are transiting here. We also heard about the Syrian refugees going up to European countries. They got stuck in Turkey, for example. Probably you also heard, the Russia and Ukrainian war that also led to displacement of many refugees. So in total, refugee populations in the world now is 35.3 million. Um, and just like Professor Sigit mentioned earlier, the refugee population, which is like 35.3 million, is only a third of the global forcibly displaced people worldwide. So yesterday I Googled this data from the UNHCR portal, and you can see here that most of the forcibly displaced people due to conflict, violence, human rights violations, and other serious disturbing events actually are those who are stuck inside their country. So usually this is because they don't have resources to go out the country, to cross the border, to seek for asylum in other countries. So with dire situations of war and conflict, they have to displace from their home, meaning that probably their house is destroyed and maybe their city is destroyed, and they have to live in a camp that they cannot cross the border simply because they don't have resources. So we can see here that previously Professor Sigit has explained that there are different kind of terms between refugees, asylum seekers, and probably illegal migrants and illegal um, international migrants. We can see here that refugee is actually a legal or institutional term. So in Indonesia, we know the term pengungsi, right? That we can imagine when you hear the term pengungsi, then something pop up in your mind, and it will be like probably a bunch of people who have to go leave their home and then probably live in a tent because of the maybe natural disaster or maybe also because of the ethnic conflicts, and so on and so on. So the pengungsi probably will be best understood as the social. It is part of the social categorization, right? It's a social term. But to be able to become refugee, you cannot just claim yourself as refugee. So some institution has to evaluate your claim. That's why before refugee, then you become asylum seeker. If you go to the country that gives you some become the host country or the transit country, or you can go to UNHCR as the UN body that is mandated by the state, and you say that I would like to claim myself refugee status. And usually the refugee uh, status is then granted from the evaluations. And the evaluation is based on the convention, the definition of the convention. So, yeah, so this also, no, before that. Before this one, yes. So here, according to 1951 Refugee Convention, refugee is someone who is unable or unwilling to return to their country of origin owing to a well-founded fear of being persecuted for the reason of race, religion, nationality, membership of particular social group, or political opinion. So originally, this is just the definitions to evaluate if someone will meet this criteria, then they will be granted refugee status. But if not, then they will be rejected. They can do appeal if they have more evidence to show that actually they deserve the refugee, because becoming refugee meaning that they will be entitled to humanitarian protection. In Indonesia, there are some people who are rejected, and unfortunately, they cannot go back to their country because they are they face fear of persecution. So in this case, then this group of people will become stateless because they cannot, they cannot move forward for resettlement, but they also can go back to their country of origin. I would like to probably offer some concept that I borrow from Alexander Betts. He said that probably if we always do the categorizations of refugee, we just limiting. Probably we also have to consider survival migration. So he said that survival migration is people who are outside their country of origin because of existential threat for which they have no access to domestic remedy or solution. So in this, definitions, he expects that it will be more inclusive for more diverse group of people who need protection. So he, this is one of the what is it? One of the input from academics and probably also from activists to the UN body to also try to consider some changes or maybe some modifications for the convention that many things it's already out of date because two. But now we are in the 2023, right? And the dynamics of the problems is also different. And Alexander Betts say that nowadays people displaced because of the conflict. It's not only because they are persecuted by their government. So the number of the dictatorship is actually probably reduced since now we have the democratizations globally. But actually, more and more government they're not able to protect and to provide the rights for their citizens. That's why the citizens has to go out and displace, and then it also an inability of the government to protect the society from the threat of civil war and etc. Actually, he say that it's enough to be the basis for the citizens to get protections from international society. Okay, so here, like I said, the primary cause of border displacement have shifted from persecution to deprivation. And then also, I think Professor Sigit already mentioned that, actually the refugee definitions now actually it's also considering other groups that has not been considered before. For example, like those who have certain sexual orientation. Before it was not considered as refugees, but now, for example, like in Iran, if you have certain sexual orientations, then in domestic law you are allowed to be executed, and then this group of people can go out from the country and seek for asylum in other country, and with this kind of reasoning, then he now can be granted refugee status. So yes, so we have to understand that talking only about refugees may potentially exclude other forced displaced persons who need humanitarian intervention, but it's okay because like in refugee discourse, it's still something that we need to criticize as yeah. So I just want to give you some illustrations. Where are the refugees when we, think the refugees? Probably most of us will think that they live in a camp, and like in the upper picture, it is the camp in Dadaab in Kenya. It's like the largest camp in the world that has been, has discourse that it will be closed for years, and in this picture down is the refugee camp in Pakistan. So there are many refugees who are still living in this kind of camp outside the border, or in other countries of origins. But now more and more people also live in urban setting as well. So probably if we talk about the refugee conditions in Indonesia, it will be more like this. We can see that refugees who are transiting in Indonesia, they don't live in camps, they don't live under tent. usually they live in accommodations that are also side by side with local people in a city setting, in an urban setting. Both pictures here and on the previous pictures, I got it from the internet. This is I give the source, but maybe we can go on to the next slide. Yeah. So when the organizer asked me to, to prepare some talking point about the diverse challenges that refugees encounter globally, this is like probably the eighth thing that I will offer to you guys. I'm sure that probably you will have more ideas, but I identified these points based on my research in the field and also my observations uh, in the phenomena in the global scale. So Hannah Arendt, she uh, she wrote a book right after the Universal Declaration of Human Rights over at the time, and UDHR at the time shone the light on that the rights of a human is basically must be protected by the state, or the state is the sole source where the human can get the civil and political rights. And so if someone is not recognized by any state, then it means that there is no right to have rights. That's one of her critics to the uh, to the universal instruments at the time, and this quotation has been used by refugee scholars all over the world, to show the precarity of the situation of refugees when not no country recognized their identity, their civil or political identity, then they don't have anyone or any party to provide or to protect for their rights. So the problem is that in many settings globally, refugees do not have rights to work, they don't have rights to legal registrations, no rights to formal education, no access to housing, lose their freedom of movement, no access to health service, no access to legal aid, and no legal protections. And in some transit countries or hosting countries, there will be like some humanitarian organizations like UNHCR or probably IOM. In Indonesia, we have CRS as well, and like a more or CWS, a church work service that become the implementing partner of UNHCR. But usually the resources that are provided by these organizations are very limited. So refugees cannot rely on this uh, certifications. I will highlight that actually even in Indonesia case, for example, like one family member, the father will come first to Indonesia to to become the first what is it, pathfinder, for example, going to Indonesia, and then Indonesia UNHCR Indonesia then give him refugee status, and then IOM will give him accommodations in one housing, and then his wife and his children come after him, probably like after 5 months or after a year. And this thing is not automatically that they can live together, just like some bureaucracy that will hinder that. And also when someone is transiting in Indonesia or in other transit countries, they have to wait long time before they can be able to reunite again with their family. So it's I think it's very personal yet very important problem that family reunification becomes a problem. And then we have social exclusion from host communities. I don't know, can I have like probably uh, some hands before this? Have you heard about refugees in Indonesia? Do you know where they live? The lady over here. Could you? Mhm. Okay, thank you. And where did you hear that news or information from class? Okay, so you're studying the refugee-related issues or probably humanitarian issues. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So generally, probably local people in Indonesia they have no ideas about this. Uh, that refugees are transiting in Indonesia. And when they do, in the beginning probably the relationship can be good, but there are also some um, what is it fact that the refugee also experience social exclusions and even discrimination with their neighbors or host countries. The sixth one is problem with domestic law. Some of the refugees probably they're not familiar with domestic law because it's different from their domestic law in the country of origins. And when they do have problems with this, then they will they don't have any chance to access the legal aid or something like that. The seventh one is prolonged protected waiting uh, with the limited resettlement chance. So now I think it's less than 1% globally. Uh, Refugees has to wait longer and longer. For example, like in Indonesia, usually they will expect 4 years from the start of the process to the resettlement process, but now it's getting more than 10 years that refugees are waiting here. And also because of that, then they will have dire mental issues. Yeah. So this is just some illustrations or where refugees in Indonesia are located. Um, you're correct that some of them they are in Aceh and mostly are Rohingyas who are stranded by boat from Bangladesh or from Myanmar that are trying to go to Australia but stranded in Indonesian water. But most of the refugee populations in Indonesia are from Afghanistan and from Hazara ethnic group. We can see here 9,500 people are registered with UNHCR Indonesia today. Well, this is the fact sheet on August 2023, so probably it will be changed a little bit. But this is the three big countries that are transiting in Indonesia: Afghanistan, Somalia, and then Myanmar. In Myanmar, we can expect that the Rohingya refugees are the main, and um, we can see here that in total, maybe almost 12,000 individuals with 6,900 cases active uh, refugees are transiting in Indonesia and wait for resettlement because Pak Sigit earlier mentioned that there is no chance for the local integration. Yeah. So this is just some route map that I gathered from the data from the independent young migrants while I'm doing my PhD research in 2016, 2017. So this is the route that they for their journey from Afghanistan, from Pakistan, also from Iran. So usually they will take flight to other Southeast Asian countries, to Thailand, for example, or to Malaysia. And then from there, usually from Kuala Lumpur, they will continue the journey by flight to Jakarta, or they will cross by boat to either Medan on Pekanbaru, and from there they will take bus to Jakarta. So this is the route that they follow because the transporter, or maybe people will call it people smuggler, already have prepared for them. So this one is also the route from the Somalia, from the eastern Africa to Indonesia, and the other one is from Sri Lanka to Indonesia. I will not discuss into too detail. Yeah, so this is the transiting in Indonesia. Yeah, you can see it here. So the waiting to get resettlement now has been stretched for to 10 years. You can see over here because I don't think that it appeared there. So Indonesia hasn't ratified the 1951 Refugee Convention, but actually it respects the new non-refoulement principle. And then Indonesia now has the presidential decree number 125 that is launched in December 2016. And it's only focused on how refugees are received and handled in Indonesia. So it only regulates discovery, sheltering, safeguarding, and immigration supervisions. And actually, it's only focused on those who are found on the sea. And it did not mention any kind of rights protection for the refugees. The decree acknowledged three durable solutions: still voluntary repatriation, deportations, and resettlement. But local integration in Indonesia is not an option. We also have Satgas Penanganan Pengungsi dari Luar Negeri, or Task Force for International Refugee Handling, and it's established to oversee the implementations of the presidential decree. And we also have these regulations of the Directorate General of Immigration on the handling of illegal migrants claiming to be asylum seekers or refugees. Actually, this is the older what is it law or maybe regulations that the presidential decree must be stronger, and must be more implemented. But interestingly, until now, these two regulations are still used according to the what is it the priority for the each department as well. So these regulations set rules and restrictions. Refugees are obliged to stay in placement decided upon by the DGI. They are forbidden to go to near harbors and airports if not escorted by immigration officer. They're not allowed to receive guests overnight at their housing. And they have to respect Indonesian laws. They cannot work. They cannot engage in income-generating activities, not driving without license, and maintaining public order. So they also have to report regularly to the immigration department, and so on and so on. So you can see that from these two regulations, the Directorate General Immigrations are more restrictive. But both, they don't offer any uh, light or any information about the refugee protection because it's only handling, only managing, only what is it, safeguarding, and etc. So I would like to mention here, although we don't have proper legal what is it, framework to protect the refugees, but actually, like de facto, there are many things that have been done in Indonesia to allow refugees to get some access to give them some access. So the ambiguous protection mechanism for refugee populations is very apparent here by the outsourcing of the management to humanitarian organizations, with the UNHCR and IOM, and also Indonesia has planned immigration detention center, not anymore. Now all refugees and asylum seekers are released from the detention center, but before Indonesian detention center were used to shelter this population. Yeah, I would like to also mention that for refugees, they prioritize resettlement rather than to, you know, to engage to some activities uh, to better the rights in Indonesia because they know that in the resettlement countries the rights are already in place and probably it will take so long time to fight for local integration, for example, or to have like more humanitarian no, the human rights betterment in Indonesia. But here we can see that, for example, like in education, although we don't have like law or maybe what is it, undang-undang is a law yet, but now we have this from the Ministry of Education and Culture. We have circular letter. First is in the year 2019, and then has been updated in 2022, and it gives opportunity for the refugee children to go to SD, SMP, SMA to the primary to access the formal primary education. And before they only can go to school without certificate, but now it's with regulations actually they can be released, they can be granted like certain like special income generating activities, although most small business that cater to the needs of the refugee community itself, it is possible. Usually they will do, dress tailoring, bread making, hairdressing, translating, teaching English. And even now, the government also opened the discussions that refugees can have some income generating activities if they are collaborating with locals. So there are some mechanisms that has been also in place as well. And for the health, probably the most plausible implementations is that all of the refugees can access the vaccine when there was the pandemic for the COVID, and also that they also can access health services in the clinic, puskesmas, and also the other hospital as well. This is just some pictures. The refugee conditions in Indonesia. This one is the inside the detention center, but nowadays again, no one. I think it's only 20 something refugee population that are still inside the detention center. Usually when they break national law, etc. This one is the youth or maybe children under age shelters in Jakarta, and this one is the accommodation under IOM. And this one, uh, you know, you can say that they are homeless. They're trying to report themselves. This is in front of UNHCR office in Jakarta, and they're trying to ask for help so that they can get the accommodations. This one is the inside detention center in Makassar at the time, and this one is the IOM house. Yeah, this is just some uh, illustrations how refugees can get their ingredients, because now many local warung, local stall also cater for their needs as well, because they know that the refugees are living in that area, and this is how they cook because they don't have like the proper what is it bread pot, so they do that. Yeah, usually they will live in groups so that it will be cheaper. They will cook together. They will share food, and again waiting because they don't have much things to do other than probably playing soccer or things. But it needs to be mentioned that refugees here in Indonesia cannot only be seen as a passive victim, because they actually have like a lot of capacities. For example, like they do this refugee learning center in Cisarua in Puncak. They there I think probably around 4 or 5 refugee learning centers that are open in Indonesia, organized also by refugees for the refugee children. So this kind of initiatives now are more and more. Yes, this is how they do. What is it? Sport with local people as well, with the local youth, do some competitions, and they also raise their voice when they're not, feeling that probably UNHCR or yeah, mostly UNHCR do fair thing to them. Usually they will think that why the process is so slow, why somebody come later, but they go to the settlement first before them, or in this case, example like Oromo group of people very slow to get the resettlement chance, so they raise their voice trying to get public. Okay, I think before we go to this slide, I will just leave it at that and to give back the time to one moderator. Thank you.
All right, rounds of applause for Lisa. So before going into the talk show, I would like to thank the two speakers for the presentation that you have given to all of us. It's courtesy of good insight, I believe it might give us a new knowledge or two. And also, giving specific context in the city of Yogyakarta itself, if you see on Lisa's presentation, the Australian poster of "No Way You Will Make Australia Home." This poster is actually found on one of the busiest streets in Yogyakarta, which is Prawiro Taman Street. And I assume by having that, it is also showing us the importance of discussing refugee discourses, as actually discourse discussions of refugee are just things that are near to us. And so my first question actually would be directed to Mbak Lisa. You have mentioned about common challenges that are faced by refugees in this particular site. And one thing that I would like to ask is, are there any unique obstacles that are faced by different refugee populations, or are refugees' experiences all over the world are particularly much the same? One thing that I'm also interested is in your dissertation, you mentioned about active waiting, how independent refugee youth exercise active waiting while transiting to Gadjah. So does that kind of activity also happen in other countries? So maybe you can touch upon that.
Yes, thank you for the questions. I think probably can we go to the slide now? Again, again. Yes, 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 the green one. Yes. So you mentioned how the like different group of refugees face different challenges and stuff like that. So here I try uh, to break it into some aspects. For example, like an economic aspect, you can see that I mentioned previously, if you have resources, then there will be like more options for you to go and to choose which transit countries that you will go to. Traditionally, we say that, well, refugees go out from the country because of the war, because of the conflict, so they cannot choose where to go, right? But there's some part of it that actually uh, not completely like that, because we as a human, we also choose where to go, where we think it's safer, etc. And when I spoke to the refugees that I met during my field work, I asked why they chose to Indonesia. It's also that they make comparison that when they want to go to the Europe, the border is now very strict. It's very hard to get into the Europe, but also some of the refugees from Africa mentioned that if they want to go to Europe, meaning that they have to go by boat and cross Mediterranean Sea, and that is very dangerous. We saw in news that many boats, many lives gone in Mediterranean Sea. So they see that Indonesia as the option, but because Indonesia doesn't share border with their country of origin, then they need more resources, right? To be able to come here, then they have to pay smuggler, for example. So those who have more economic capacity, I would say that they have more options to choose where they want to go for the asylum seeking as well. And then the second one is also the political, right? It is the political thing from their country of origin. Many refugees come from countries with restrictive domestic law for certain social groups. For example, I mentioned earlier about the case in Iran, for example, or in Nepal, if I'm not mistaken, that they have the domestic law to criminalize LGBTIQ people, for example. And it also, affects the terrain, the refugee terrain, and where to go. And also the border policy, I mentioned it earlier. The fact that there are quite a lot of refugees still transiting in Indonesia is that because Australia is strengthening their border, obviously, because before they aim to go to Australia, they just go to Indonesia for short transit. They aim to go to Australia, but then because Australia closed the border with the OSC, Operation Sovereign Border, not mistaken, 2013, then there is turn back boat from the Australian border, and they have to, well, they choose to transit here in Indonesia, because if they choose to continue their journey, then probably they will be uh, detained in Nauru or in Manus. They think that, oh, Indonesia is safer, it's a decent place to live, probably also cheaper. And gender also becomes aspect for this as well, because in country of origin, uh, some of the refugees probably come from the countries that they don't have any war, but probably they will have certain cultural values, or I don't know, domestic law that probably usually will be very patriarchal, and they try to also escape the very restrictive I think we have to show this one. Yeah, but but I think that there are some aspects will affect the dynamics of the refugee. You mentioned you asked about the active waiting as well. Like one of the arguments in my dissertation is that we need to see refugees not only as beneficiaries, not only as passive victims, but I try to demonstrate that while they're in the transit countries, they have done a lot of things for themselves, but also for their community and also for local peoples that, they while they're here, they don't only waste their time, but they use their time to make something that can be, yeah, developmental for.
All right, thank you,
Thank you.
but Lisa, for the answer. So if I may also share what I got from her answer is that we cannot uh we cannot say that the refugees all feel the same experiences because at the end of the day there are social, political, and also cultural aspects that will affect each and every story of the refugees personally. And so then I would to Professor Sigit. Um, so one thing that I would like to ask to you is that what are the opportunities and challenges in fostering international will for cooperation to address the global crisis? And for example, one of the most contemporary example we can see is the Palestinian and Israel refugee and displaced person crisis currently happening, right? Which causes quite a debate as support in society is divided into two. So is it possible that countries can collaborate effectively in order to ensure the well-being and rights of refugees?
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Uh, Actually, this question, it seems like a classic issue dealing with uh, how to manage and how to provide solution for the refugee crisis and displacement crisis around the world. I would like to highlight these three points in relation with how we deal with the refugee issue and displacement issue. First of all, of course, it is in relation with the protection. Refugee, asylum seeker, displacement around the world, wherever, whenever, first and foremost, they need protection. Protection from legal point of view, protection from physical point of view, and also providing uh, any necessary service. And then the second issue is that I would like to highlight about assistance. Since refugee, asylum seeker, and displaced person has to depart from the place of origin to another place in which they are not familiar, they are in a very new and unknown situation. So they need assistance in any aspect of their life. How to provide the logistics, how to provide the shelter, how to provide any services and the need of human being is very crucial for them wherever. And the third one is that, of course, no one wants to refuse because if they are happy, if they are established in this place of origin, we don't want to part from that. In such a situation, they need solution to situation. As I have mentioned, the solution could be voluntary resettlement, could be local integration. The solution not depend the willingness, but need participation, decision, open. So, such a context, then we have to lawmaker also put our issues even the and it happened not only in one country but so that there are multiple actors and should be attracted to participate in this. And the second issue is by attracting them, we could that would like to get attractive then collaborate. We have set we should set solutions for so that by identifying relevant issues, identifying the relevant, also taking the content assessment, eventually we would to share the burden all of us, not only but ordinary people, academia, or civil society, or even for the global community that it is a real problem. And we have the obligation from the ethical point, from the legal point, from moral point, even from political point, problem. Thank you very
Thank you very much, Dr. Harfigit, for the answer. So, as I was mentioned by the committee, there are already many questions from online. So, if I can be here,
So how do we build
so Melissa,
much. Would like to set also setting the regulation pertaining to the refugee and asylum seeker. And in my experience, when I was working as legal officer, protection officer, in either in the or how to convince the national authority not always easy for us. And course, there are many paths to convincing national authorities to provoke them, essentially go into the political discussion, political willingness to deal with the humanitarian. In such a context, then there are many opportunities but also challenges. First of all, of course, how we could make promotion from many layers. Also, based on this promotion, mainstreaming issue, then we would have the opportunity to influence the decision making. At the same time, we would also have the opportunity to pressurize against which is relevant to provide assistance, protection, solution from the issue around it. And once again, I would like to mention that it should be involving multi-actors, not only the academic field, but also civil society, common people, also, of course, the international organization, also donors. If we look into our experience when Indonesia and Southeast Asia managed Indochina's refugee crisis in 1970, there are multi-actors. Also, there is a comprehensive plan of action which could be accepted and implemented systematically, not only by the national authority, but also upon support of the international community and international agencies, as well as donors in relation with the implementation of the program. Of course, the civil society, when we come into the conflict again, to provide assistance solution.
All right, thank you. So I hope that answers your question, Meta. And I would like to welcome the second speaker, which is
Give your question. Okay, thank you for the recent regulation regarding Australian refugees. Met refugees have Indonesian concern another southern asset source. And when I lived in Baru, there are a lot of refugees from Afghanistan are to actually flow to Australia. And to return back the boat who listed Australia has hosted refugees overseas, including in Papua New Guinea and Nauru. These refugees are held in a poor condition, and they often lack access to basic services such as health care and education. And you know that Australia is breaking international law, the turn back the boats policy and the detention of refugees aboard have been criticized as violating international law, including the 1915 Refugees Convention and the 1976 Protocol. And asylum seekers were reported to have been subjected to violence, abuse, and neglect. The centers were also overcrowded and unhygienic. So, my question is, what the factors that make Australians receive strict, sorry, not receive strict sanctions against
Ayuda. If you may repeat the question again, it has something to do with Australia, wasn't it? Australia.
Australia? Yeah. Strict sanctions against this sector. Oh my gosh, sorry, guys. No worries. Are you done?
All right. So while Ayuda types her question on the chat, Komati, is it okay if we entertain one more question by chat? All right. So anyone who's currently raising their hand, please feel free to type your question, and we will entertain one question that is from the chat box. So off you go. All right. So the question from Ayuda is, what factors make Australia not receive a strict sanction against their policy? Right. Duly noted. And we're still entertaining for one more question. So either Professor Sigit or Mbak Lisa would like to explain more about the Australian policy if you're familiar.
Probably I can share my knowledge on the Australian ban for the refugees who are transiting in Indonesia. Um, since Australia re-implementing the operational sovereign border, I think it was probably September 2013, that all refugees and asylum seekers in Indonesia cannot go to Australia by boat because they will be considered as illegal maritime rival, if I'm not mistaken. That's the term. And the boat will be pushed back to Indonesian water, or else they will be detained. They will be captured and then detained to um, Manus and Nauru uh, detention center, which is like that you mentioned earlier. They have a very what is it? Yeah, degrading conditions, like this very bad conditions there. There is no human rights protections over there, like many criticize. Uh, even the basic needs are limited and a lot of violence and stuff like that. Not that Australia are not criticized, like many, international community has been trying to force Australia to close these two what is it, detention center. And I heard that with the Australian political changes recently, that there is some pledge that they will permanently close this two things. But other than that, Australia at the 2014 also state that those who come to Indonesia after 2014 will not be resettled ever in Australia. And this kind of policy was also reevaluated again. And I heard that with this new parliament, I think then those who come to Indonesia after 2014 still has chance to get the resettlement to Australia in the future. So this is some, you know, uh, uh, some examples on how some uh, national politics in the country of resettlement, also with the with related to the global agenda, also affect how the condition of refugees and asylum seekers in the transit country. Because to not to say that Indonesia doesn't have the sovereignty or anything like that. If we try to analyze and look at it analytically, Indonesia now is actually still served as kind of like border place or borderland for Australia, because it becomes the place where the refugees stop from going to Australia. Yeah, regarding the questions of why there is no sanction and stuff like that, it's probably very um, political. Like it's also related to the national agenda as well, like how the power of Australia probably also deal with the other countries as well, US members and stuff like that. But from the academic perspective, I think there are a lot of things that have been done to criticize this kind of what is policy that obviously is not good for the migrant population, for the refugees. The prostitute.
Okay, thank you very much. I think this is case of example how political issue, political willingness is very significant in dealing with refugee issue. As I have mentioned or responded question is actually a kind of hypocrisy context in which when a country, on the one hand, assessing or ratifying international review instrument, but on the other hand, the national authority or the regime don't want to implement force the legal standard consistent based on some quote partial or vested interest consideration. And in such a context, then we have another question: whether he creating solution, creating problem. If such policy executed, execution by one question, next question, whether this policy stop people execution. And then another question, whether such country who implementing policy obtain appreciation from good, from international community, or what on them. Also greatly pressurized by the international agenda due to not only but humanitarian, legal, and ethical, also international aspects contribute to this issue. So dealing with the refugee issue, actually there are a cyclical uh, process. First of all, of course, from the country of origin. If we would like to deal with the issue dealing with the refugee displacement, asylum seeker, actually, the most effective way how to deal with the root cause of this displacement, meaning how to provide solution in the country of origin, on the place of origin of the refugee, asylum seeker, or the displaced person. And the second one is that refugee or asylum seeker who are crossing the international border involving the host country. And the third one is, of course, the country in which refugee would like to go or to visit. Partially policy in the country in which the refugee would like to go is not a solution. Even this policy would creating quote unquote trap to many countries, creating tension with neighboring countries, creating tension with the international community, or even condemn from the international community because this country do not implement consistently the law, ethical standard, the commitment to the international community. So again, uh, one partial and vested interest consideration prioritized by one country actually it is not provide solution but even created new problems not only for the country which implementing the policy but also for the international community and creating new problems, international relations, creating tension, creating difficulty for the whole actor on the stakeholder dealing with the refugee issue. So once again, of course, such a policy would not be relevant if we would like to seek the solution on the global problem. The most important thing, as I have mentioned many times, that how we convince the global community how to provide burden sharing with consistent agenda, with a consistent concrete program, so that we
please feel free to type in the Zoom chat as mentioned before. And while waiting, I would also like to share my response to the two answers given by Mbak Lisa and Prof. Sigit. I was reminded something that I was taught in class that said public policy is everything the government do and did not do, and debate might not appear. Answering Ayuda's question before, like I also would like to share that debate might not appear on popular media, but it certainly that the topic of Australia and what it did before. I feel like it oftentimes appear in maybe governmental discussions, certain academic discussions, and refugee issue is still seen as a high political issue, right? It is still seen an issue that us civilians don't have agency about. So maybe that is why I was like for a couple of years your so that's my take on that. And for the other viewers here, so I still see several hands raised up on Zoom. So if any of you would like to ask a question, uh, all right, we're entertaining three more questions. Should there be any?
Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Haikal. I'm from Indonesia, and my question is kind of simple, and because it relates to what the outcome of the program will be from. So my question is, what are the tasks that need to be prioritized by refugee agencies like UNHCR or ICRC or even us as youth change makers now. So is it the implementation of better laws to the refugee strike or involve more locals or organizations to be refugee solution agents to participate in this program? Thank you.
All right, thank you, Toku. So for international organizations and what civilians can do, if I'm correct. All right, so we're talking about agency now, but
Okay, thank you so much for the question. I think I have prepared some pointers as well in the slides. If we can minimize a little bit of Zoom. So for the advocacy of this, problem, or maybe, yeah, Prof. could say that it's a burden sharing, but now it's also some popular term called responsibility sharing because they say that it's, the issues of the refugee and asylum seekers are actually, yeah, nowadays a global phenomenon that we all need to be responsible to. Um, I think we can see here there is some elements that I have listed here. First, when we talk about the right-based approach, then we understand that refugees are human, same like citizens, right? So you mentioned what is the priority for the UNHCR and other probably institutions is to continue to make sure that refugees are treated as equal, just like humans. And of course, it's probably still difficult in a place where there is no proper legal framework to protect them. But it doesn't mean that it's not possible, right? Like, but when I mentioned earlier that there is some cases where the government actually allows refugees to access some uh, facilities and some rights, although we don't have any laws that saying that all refugees uh, can get all basic human rights just as citizens, right? There is no uh, legal framework mentioning anything about the rights of the refugees. Yet the government uh, have this surat edaran, circular letter, specifically from the Ministry of the Education, saying that for the refugee children, they can go to the they can access formal education. They even can get certifications that will help them in the country of resettlement in the future. Uh, Also, when we talk about the right to work, they don't have any, what is it? There is no legal law or whatever saying that they can get the, what is it, working visa or working permit. But there is some flexibility as well that we can see here in the national level and also in the local level in the government, as well as, even the immigration officer. They're pretty open for the discussion for this, and they even have the statement that, okay, refugee can get some income, because it is a basic need, right? Everyone needs to have a job, needs to have some income, as long as that they can do it collaboratively with the local. This is also some, we can see here that the government point of view, and probably also immigration point of view, they also have some hesitation. They're afraid, if the refugees will be given full rights to work, then probably the local people who still unemployed, they will, they raise their concern, etc., etc. And this is, of course, not something that is already proven, that there is some, hesitation on that. But the thing that in everyday life, because, like my background in anthropology, I like to see the practices in everyday life, that actually that is not impossible to help refugees to access some services that they need in daily basis. Facilitate, and I also listed here for the youth what we actually can do, right? During my research in 2016, 2017, I made like several photography workshops, for example. Then I asked some refugee youth to do some photo, what is it, hunting. They're trained to be photographer. They will produce pictures and photos, and we facilitate them to have some exhibitions, for example. And some of them, they also collaborate with the university students to make music together, etc. And maybe here in Yogyakarta, it's a bit difficult because there are not refugees or here few, but most of the young people and also students who live in Jakarta and surroundings, they have a lot of chances, opportunities to collaborate with young refugees or other, or women refugees, that they actually also have skills that can be, also beneficial for the local as well. So here I see that collaborating with refugees and build something together as equal, because I think it's not only about the rights but also about the dignity. The refugee, they need to be acknowledged as a whole person, and also try to involve refugees in local activities. When you have events like this, I think it will be really beneficial if you also inform refugees communities, particularly young people, to also join into the conversation, so that they also can actually convey their perspective as well, and be the inclusion agent, centralizing on the sameness. Because, when we talk about the refugee, or they don't have rights, they're different to the citizens, or they're probably, we will see them as I don't know, like have traumatic experiment, and they're very different because they come from other countries. They have different religions, for example. They have different skin color, etc. But when we see about the sameness that we share with refugees, I think it's a good strategy to also tell to the society that, we need to engage more to this more diverse people, given that we are now living in the multicultural world. Multicultural, yeah. I think maybe that, and I would like to also mention that that will be like that there have been some complementary pathways for the refugees. Like for the conventional resettlement, the number is probably only less than 1%. So more and more um, people try to do alternative things to help refugees to get resettlement in the third country. One is through the education path, like the study path. So, for example, if you have any information scholarship in I don't know, Australia, US, or maybe Canada, and they have programs for the refugees, and you can give some information or even coach the refugees to be able to apply for that kind of things, or probably for the complementary path for the labor mobility. Refugees, a lot of refugees are highly educated as well. They have a lot of skills, and from these skills, they also can mobile. They can get resettlement chance by this labor mobility. And the other one is the sponsorship model. And this one really needs the participation of the civil society because they have to be the sponsor. For example, like 5 people in Canada, they pledge, they say that okay, I'm willing to be the sponsor for one refugees that are transiting in Indonesia. And in that case, when all other procedure has been in place, then this refugee can be resettled through the sponsorship path way. And I think for now, the sponsorship is the what's it the biggest, the most yeah alternative for the resettlement from refugee from transiting from Indonesia. Maybe that.
So I have a question, which is perhaps for Professor Sigit, but I think both speakers are welcome to answer if they have insight. So my question is quite simple in the sense that there seems to be, because we talked about burden sharing before, right? There seems to be a sort of trend where it's no longer burden sharing, but it's becoming more of burden offsetting that's happening in the whole refugee discourse internationally. Um, so I wanted to ask, how would that impact, or how would um, what would that mean for transit countries like Indonesia and internationally for international norms on refugee protection? Because we see it, like we see Australia doing it with us in Nauru, and there has been amendments in Japan's immigration laws, and they're increasing their aid actually for refugee protection, all the while making their policies more strict to actually accept refugees. And there was also the issue of, like, for example, Germany's aid to Bangladesh for refugee protection. So, with that global trend, what would that mean to transit countries like Indonesia and the international norms on refugee protection? Thank you. Right, thank you. So,
Okay, thank you very much. I think I would like to highlight this issue. Actually, I based on my experience when I was working with a protection officer. But there are three misconceptions about this. First of all, most of the nations think that dealing with the refugee, dealing with the dealing with the disaster is situation of international. Actually, it is not. What happened is in the territory. deal with this problem. The national community, the international organization, the international humanitarian component, the main obligation lies on the head of the national, because in the constitution, the law, sovereignty, it is their obligation. The second misunderstanding, when dealing with the refugee, most of the national authority only thinking about the movement of people and the movement of human beings. Because actually it is a superficial issue. Why? Because refugee, asylum seeker, displaced person, human being. Human beings need everything. They need to survive. If they need to survive, then provided legality for illegal and legal political decision, but it is artificial decision. In another country, there is opportunity to right walk, right to get married, right to education, and it is legalized. It is creating better situation, both for the refugee, for the displaced, but also for the local community, because they could live in harmony. So that this misunderstanding is very important, because whether should be legalized or illegalized, it is artificial decision, artificial political constitution. Because we should consider that if they are refugees, they are human beings, like they need to survive, they need food, need shelter, need education for their children. They need to get married and etc. Right to family uniting union. The third misunderstanding. Most of the national authority around the world thinking refugee, asylum seeker, displaced person, likewise other people in ordinary situation. Which in fact there are in extraordinary situation. They are in abnormal situation. They don't have to be legal certificate, they don't have to legal documentation. And if you would like to go abroad, you would have to apply visa through the normal procedure, and you have access to services. But for the refugee, asylum seeker, displaced person, it is because they have to have dignity, avoiding persecution, avoiding war, avoiding catastrophe, and etc. So that this misunderstanding also should be highlighted, because most of the decision makers thinking that refugee, asylum seeker, and displaced person consider likewise normal person, normal people who could move, do everything ordinary case. Big fact, they are, I think, this is a very general explanation of refugee case. Also, coming to the point of view, would like highlight, if we believe that we are human, we have humanitarian, we have ethical, we are also willing to treat the people well as human, like, okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Sigit. Mbak Lisa, if you would like to add.
Yes, thank you. I just want to uh, add something probably that, the policy implementation, stuff like that, is always negotiable. And there are some proof as well that, when this very strict structure of regulation to the government regulations in itself, but when the citizens continuously and uh, what is it regularly make make some activities or make some plan to negotiate to show that actually civil society are engaging in this uh, thing. The government actually has really opened. Yeah, maybe not all cases, but in most democratic countries, they usually will listen to their citizens as well. So, and also nowadays we have the social media. Here a lot of persons here use social media, and we have witnessed the power of social media nowadays. And during the 2015, 2016 refugee crisis to Europe from Syria and all over the countries at that time, there was like initially rejection from European Union border policy. Right? They don't want to accept the refugees, and they just want to contain it in Turkey and Greece and other places. Even when some boats they're approaching the military or maybe the security guard, they're also trying to push the boat, and even some of the boats they drawn and things like that. But then the civil society they try to make this frame this discourse in the social media and also in the news that actually we are welcoming the refugees. So, so it starts from that particular movement in Germany and in other countries as well, and then they then can influence uh, uh, what is it, approach or the policy of the government as well. It also happens in Indonesia, just like I mentioned earlier, that the pattern for our national government is usually they will be more willing to facilitate or to open for the discussion in terms of this uh, refugee access to services when someone has already done it. So usually from the PEMDA, from the pemerintah daerah, from the local government, they will make probably can initiate something supported by institution or organizations and also civil society, showing that here they can collaborate with refugees and the result is plausible, and then this good practices can be the source of further advocacy to shake the structure that we think, oh, it's really strict, it's really tough to as a country, yeah, government that has this regulations on the sovereign perspective of the illegal migrants coming to Indonesia and stuff like that. But it's actually some proof that we as the citizens actually can also take part of this change by continuously negotiating the influence.
All right, thank you, Melissa, for the explanation and vouching as a social political student, vouching for what you said. Politics at the end of the day is dynamic, and there are two approaches that we can use at the end of the day, top down or bottom up. It really comes back to the method that we're using. So that will be the end of the talk show and also the discussion. Thank you so much, Professor Sigit and Melissa, for attending. Please give a round of applause to the both of them, and I will give the microphone back to.
Again, thank you so much, Takaris, as our moderator for today's event, as well as to two of our incredible guests. But terima kasih. Thank you so much for this session. I think we all can agree here that we all enjoy gain insightful knowledge, new knowledge, in fact, from two of our guest speakers here today. And before proceeding to our next agenda, we're not at the end yet. So we are looking forward to for a documentation session with our guest speakers. So firstly, I would like to invite Pasigir first, perhaps to stand next to me, as well as from Aki Alvar. If Sarah, if you could come here. Here is for your full knowledge. And of course, we're not the end yet because we also have certificate of appreciation for Lisa. If I can invite on stage. Again, I hope that everyone here still have the same energy and same enthusiasm because before proceeding to the break session, we would like to invite everyone here to have a documentation session with several guest speakers as well with all of the participants here. Invite everyone to come and I think everyone can come here. Should I count? Count. Um, everyone, three, two, one. Thank you so much, everyone.
eh ya kadang emang boleh stres izin. Mau join.